Okay, we just need to move these a bit, guys. I can't move. Can you move those back? And the other one too on the other side. Thank you very much. Okay, is everyone fine? All right, well, good morning, Queensland, and it's great to be with you today. And in some very good news, we have 0 community cases, but we do have 6 new cases, all detected in quarantine and not considered to be a risk to the community. So Dr. Aiken will go through those in a moment. We've done 8,330 tests, and we really do need to see more people getting tested. So can I just say, because we've had a couple of community cases over the last week, we really do need the community. If you've got any symptoms whatsoever, please go and get tested. 11,414 vaccines were delivered by Queensland Health. This is great. Thank you for all those who are coming forward and getting vaccinated. So we now have 87.2% of Queenslanders have had their first dose. So we're getting closer to that 90% Queensland, so keep up the great work. And 78.17% of Queenslanders are fully vaccinated. So we'll be getting more details tomorrow about when we expect to hit that 80-80, and we'll be giving you an update tomorrow about that. So we'll be watching very carefully the numbers over today. Also too, can I welcome the information that came out today that TGA has approved the Pfizer vaccine for children between 5 to 11. I think everyone can remember that when I first raised this as an issue, it was dismissed. Apparently there was nowhere else in the world that was doing this and no testing was being done. Well, it was, and it makes sense. There is a lot of parents out there that are very concerned, and parents will now have this choice, and I welcome that approval from the TGA. I'm advised that by Dr. Aiken it was raised at AHPPC yesterday, and I'm sure that the Prime Minister will be updating us further at National Cabinet when we meet on Friday. So I welcome this news. I think it's good news. My little niece Lucy, she's in that age bracket, and she always says to me, "Annastacia, when can I get my vaccine?" So I was also out at a Christmas function yesterday, and a lot of teenagers were coming up to me and telling me that they had been double vaxxed as well. So well done. All right, so I will hand over to Dr. Aiken, and then I'll give an update about floods, and then Minister Furner's joining me here today because we're talking about promoting our local seafood industry this season, Christmas season, 20 days to go until Christmas, so we can support the local industry and eat lots of fresh seafood for Christmas. So I'll hand over to Dr. Aiken.
Thank you, Premier. And as you've heard, no new locally acquired cases in Queensland, which is wonderful news. The 6 new cases, 5 of those are interstate arrivals and are in quarantine, and 1 is an international arrival in quarantine. The international arrival is day 12 in hotel quarantine, and they've come from the Philippines via Singapore, and they're fully vaccinated and no risk to the community. The domestic arrivals, 1's day 4 in hotel quarantine from Melbourne, 1's day 7 in home quarantine from Melbourne, and cases 3, 4 and 5 are all initially in home quarantine, and they're now in hospital because they're also part of a family that's had other cases. All of those cases today are parts of family groups that have already had cases, and that's an important consideration as well. The most important part is none of those people have been in the community and been infectious. The other part of that good news is that there are no further cases linked to Gold Coast. We also have genomic linkage that one of the cases we referred to yesterday, who worked in the aged care facility, clusters genomically with the gentleman who'd been at Regatta Town Centre. So we now have epidemiological linkage and genomic linkage that those cases are linked. We still don't know at this stage where the initial acquisition of COVID came from, so we still want people to come forward if they've got symptoms and get tested at the Gold Coast. The other thing of importance is that we've had no cases from the testing linked to the woman that came back from South Australia, so no other cases linked to that, which is also good news. But most importantly, I think it's wonderful news that the approval for the vaccination for children aged 5 to 11. So that can happen in January, and we're already working with primary health networks, primary health care and our vaccination task force to make sure that plans are in place for that to happen come January. Thank you, and just remember that it's not just your children but yourself. If you haven't been vaccinated yet, please get vaccinated. Thank you.
Any questions, Dr. Aiken? Do we have any updates on that international arrival yesterday that Omicron wasn't Delta?
Still no word yet. The international groups are looking at it. We think the most likely thing is still that it's part of that evolution of Omicron, but the other part of it is that it may still have been in South Africa and not detected because it's still detected on S gene. So that's probably one of the other things to think about. Still too early.
Okay. All right, now we'll just move on to an update on our floods. So today is International Volunteer Day, so a big shout out to all of our volunteers out there. So good news, no major issues in Gundawindi, and I really want to thank all of the local disaster management teams working very closely with our state disaster management teams. The flood levels are at 10.28 and falling. We're not going to return the hospital and aged care patients yet. We're just going to watch and monitor the weather over the next week. We have also been advised to, we're just taking a close look on the township of Condamine. They're isolated at the moment. The river is steady at the moment, but the Bureau does expect the level to rise, so we'll be keeping a very, very close eye on that. And then just in relation to our dams, good news for SEQ dams, our water grid is at 61.8%, and that is up 6.7% from last year, so that's welcome news. And of course, I mentioned the other day that we won't need to have those water restrictions in the southeast over summer. So we've got Commissioner Leach just to talk about that. Thanks, Commissioner.
Thanks, Premier. Good morning, everyone. Last night we saw significant thunderstorm activity across southeast Queensland, and those forecast conditions will continue through today. So there's potential for heavy rainfall, hail and strong winds in parts of southeast Queensland today, in many of the locations where we've already got flooded catchments. So any of that rainfall that comes down today could result in flash flooding events. So we ask people living in those catchments to monitor the Bureau of Meteorology today and make sure they keep abreast with where these storm cells may occur. In the last 24 hours, the State Emergency Service has conducted 27 requests for assistance, and we've also attended 6 swiftwater rescue events as well. Our swiftwater technicians attended a submerged vehicle in Gympie to check that there were no occupants inside, and fortunately that was the case. They've also assisted Queensland Ambulance to attend a patient isolated by floodwaters, and we also assisted a stranded motorist trying to access a causeway in Cecil Plains. The focus with the flood event over the next couple of days will be around the townships of Cecil Plains, Surat, Condamine, Tallwood and Gundawindi. The towns that are no longer at risk are Inglewood, Texas, Roma, Taroom, Warwick and Illarbin. But it's no time for complacency. We're going to keep our focus on the weather conditions over the next few days, because with such wet catchments, we've got to be vigilant for any increase in river levels. And it is also International Volunteers Day, and today I'd like to say a big thank you to the 35,000 volunteers in Queensland Fire and Emergency Services for everything they do in keeping their local communities safe, particularly what we've seen over the last week or so with the floods. So thank you to our State Emergency Service and our Rural Fire Service volunteers.
Okay, so now Minister Furner is going to update us about buying local this Christmas and making sure that we support our seafood industry. I know it's that time of year where people are looking at where they can get their fresh prawns and their seafood from, so there's an abundance of supply. No one's going to run out, so you can take your time and you don't have to rush out and get it early. So I'll hand over to Minister Furner, but it's wonderful to be here today with members of the industry and supporting our Buy Local, Eat Local seafood campaign. Mark.
Thanks, Premier. As the Premier indicated, it's a great time of the year, Christmas time, and all through the year, in fact, to celebrate Queensland's seafood. It is the best in the world, and also there's plentiful supply. So I want to thank also the industries that are here today. You've got Aussie Seafood House, Ian from there, and also Kim Hooper from Gold Coast Marine Aquaculture. So these are industries that support our amazing seafood all through the year, but on Christmas time we have a particular focus. People have turned to probably the greatest source of protein in the world these days is seafood. So it's fresh, it's clean, its quality is second to none. So I want to encourage everyone to get out there, enjoy it, buy local, buy the fresh produce that's on supply. It's good price and very good for you as well. So thank you for the industry for coming along, and let's get out there and celebrate Christmas along with Queensland seafood.
Any questions for Mark?
What's the forecast like for supply in Australia? Is there an abundance of seafood this year?
There is. I was just talking to Ian from Aussie Seafoods, and there is an abundance of supply. So there's no need to rush, but make sure you get in early, leading into Christmas, so you can avoid those lineups that you see quite accustomed to the Christmas period, whether it be Christmas Eve and so on.
Okay, any other questions? All good? Nothing for me?
I do.
Okay, just one?
Yeah, it's looking like we'll reach the vax rate, 80% double vax before National Cabinet on Friday. Are you going to wait to see the outcome of the National Cabinet meeting before opening?
I'll be updating everyone tomorrow. We've got a meeting tomorrow morning to look at our projections and how we're going. So I'll be updating everyone tomorrow.
What's that going to be based upon? What's going to change between now and then?
Well, we're going to get some predictions about when we're likely to get there. So we'll look at the vaccination rates today, and I'll be updating everyone tomorrow. You'll all see me tomorrow.
What's the latest on 90%? What was the latest forecast for when you will hit?
Oh, we were looking at early to mid-January. I think last time you asked that question. But, I mean, we'll get a better idea tomorrow as well. But as you can see, we're getting up to the 87.3 first dose, which is fantastic news. I mean, Queenslanders are coming out and they're wanting to do this to protect themselves and their families. And, you know, Australia and Queensland, look, we have the capability of being, the most vaccinated country in the world. I think that's tremendous. And everyone's coming out because, we're just doing the right thing. We're sticking by each other as mates do.
Can I just ask Dr. Aiken, are you, first of all, concerned that testing rates are so low? And second, do you think that there's a good chance there are cases out there that we're just not aware of?
Look, it's hard to tell at this stage. I'd certainly like to see more people get tested, particularly at the Gold Coast region. We know there's been an incursion there that's led to a number of cases there. But we saw the same thing recently, where there are 2 cases there linked to the Uber driver, where we didn't get more cases and we didn't or weren't able to identify the source, but we were able to get on top of things through people's behaviour, people getting tested, people getting vaccinated. I think the big thing at the moment is this is just another reminder to us that, particularly as we open our borders, there will be cases coming to Queensland. We know that. And it's just a reminder that people do need to get vaccinated, protect themselves. The vaccine stops you from getting severe disease. It won't stop you from getting COVID, and that's really important to remember. We don't want Queenslanders to be in hospital or intensive care. The other part of that is that as people come in and they have symptoms, it's really important to get tested and get tested early, because the sooner you get tested, the sooner you get identified if you do have COVID, and you can stay away from the community and stay away from your family and friends.
Do you think as the focus sort of shifts more to the vaccine, there's a bit more complacency now around the testing sort of regime and people's ambitions to do that?
No, I don't think so. I think it's just that Queensland has been so fortunate that we haven't had cases in our community. And as we get cases, we will see more people come forward and get tested. We've had an amazing response from people who've been in South Australia and come forward and get tested, who've been in South Australia and come back since the 28th of November. Yeah, at this stage, all staff are vaccinated. There's over 90 staff there. They're 100% vaccination rate. Over 90 residents, 90% vaccination rate. And a third of those residents have actually had booster doses already. And all residents at that facility were tested yesterday, and we'll get the results back today. None of them are symptomatic, which is also good news.
We got a projected date to get some of those results back from that case yesterday?
The case yesterday, you're talking about the genomics one? Yeah, look, that's up to the international group, so they're working through that at the moment. It's very difficult. They can't assign a direct lineage to it, but they're the experts and we won't rush them on that. But we should have the results back on the aged care residents today.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks everyone.
Rules for breakfast.
Excellent.